Trash talking. It's an unavoidable part of combat sports. Confidence, arrogance, wittiness, ego. Whether you're trying to get inside your opponent's head or simply having as much fun as possible up there, if you're going to trash talk your opponent, you better be able to come away with the hand in hand. Because if you don't, chances are you'll be featured in lists like these long after you hang up your gloves. With that in mind, this is the top 10 times trash talk went wrong. Number 10. Tito Ortiz. Chael Sonnen is, without question, one of the sharpest tongues to have ever competed in MMA. And ahead of his Bellator clash with his great rival Tito Ortiz, Sonnen set a trap that the former UFC champion blindly walked into, causing one of the single greatest burns you are ever likely to see. After calling on Tito to tell everyone in attendance exactly why he was so far along in his career, Ortiz fell for it. Hard. Responding that Chael's big mouth had gotten him into every marquee fight he had ever earned. With the bait taken, Sonnen decided to bring Tito's ex-partner, the adult film star Jenna Jameson, into the equation.
Tito always says I'm using my mouth to get my opportunities. The only person I know that made money using their mouth is his ex-wife.
It was classic Chael Sonnen. And for Tito, one viral moment he would not quickly shake off. Number 9. Bethe Correia. Bethe Correia learned a very brutal lesson about trash talking mid-fight when she signed on the dotted line to take on Holly Holm in 2017. Holm, who was one of the most technically astute strikers in the game, must have been quite surprised to see her opponent taunting her and beckoning her to attack mid-round. We don't know what Bethe was expecting, but Holm obliged her, knocking her out with a quick head kick and follow-up strikes just seconds after being challenged. It's the type of moment that truly did make us sit back and wonder what was going through the head of Correia just seconds beforehand. An oddity and a cautionary tale for any wannabe trash talkers amongst you. Number 8. Alexander Hernandez. Is there a more universally loved fighter in the sport than Donald Cerrone? Well, if he's not at number 1, he's certainly in the discussion. So, when the young upstart Alexander Hernandez came in guns a-blazing, calling the revered veteran a geriatric among other things, the fans instantly jumped to the defense of the longtime promotional veteran. The unproven Hernandez very clearly wanted to use this moment to build himself into the next unmissable lightweight prospect. Unfortunately for him, Cerrone fought a near-perfect fight on the night itself, beating Hernandez down before scoring the second-round TKO finish. Not only did Alexander fail to win, but in hindsight, he managed to make himself look quite silly by the time all was said and done. Number 7. Joanna Nunes. Who could have predicted just how impressive a fighter Rose Namajunas would eventually become? As a progressing talent who is still only on the cusp of her prime, few gave the challenger much of a chance of defeating the legendary Joanna Nunes when they faced off at UFC 217. Joanna was at the peak of her powers, finally getting the legend's billing in the eyes of the sport. Upon being signed to take on the underdog Namajunas, Joanna tried her utmost to get into the young contender's head, questioning her mental strength while promising us all that it would be an easy night's work. In the end, Thug Rose managed to pull off one of the most shocking wins in MMA history, knocking Joanna out in the very first round to usher in a new era at 115 pounds. Joanna was forced to eat her very own slice of humble pie before eventually losing out to Rose once again in the rematch. A bitter pill to swallow, that's for sure. Number 6. James Vick. James Vick decided that he would rub salt in the wound of the out-of-form Justin Gaethje, a man who had learned a very tough lesson about the upper echelons of this game through back-to-back losses at the hands of Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier. Thinking this was his big chance to break into the division's top 10, Vick attempted to draw as many eyes as possible, calling Gaethje MMA's answer to Homer Simpson before promising a similar fate for him once the cage doors closed. Unfortunately, Justin had improved dramatically, cutting a far more patient fighter this time around. And when the moment came to fight, Gaethje waited, stalking Vick with a newfound level of composure before knocking him out cold in the middle portions of the first round. All losses hurt, but we're sure that this one hurt that little bit more. Number 5. Dominick Cruz. As one of the most cerebral fighters in the sport, the former UFC bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz is also without question one of the sharpest minds. So when the young upstart Cody Garbrandt was given a somewhat premature shot at divisional gold, Cruz had every reason to be confident. A member of Uriah Faber's Team Alpha Male, the rivalry between Cody's gym and the champion was one that stretched back for the best part of a decade. It was truly difficult to imagine a scenario where Garbrandt would have anything more than a puncher's chance, And yet, despite Cruz clearly winning the trash-talking exchanges, Cody went out there on the night and put on one of the greatest title-winning performances of all time. He made the champ miss frequently and punished him brutally each and every time. Cruz, though seemingly the better fighter on paper, was forced to eat his words upon leaving the octagon that night without his belt. Overall, that fight stood as one of the single greatest shocks of the era. Number 4. Conor McGregor. Indeed, Conor McGregor has been forced to eat his words on several occasions. But for us, no moment stood as a more devastating blow to his persona than his UFC 229 mauling at the hands of Khabib Nurmagomedov. It truly was a rivalry that crossed lines on both sides, with issues of race, culture, and religion coming to the fore as these two enemies traded verbal barbs. When push came to shove, it was indeed the Dagestan-born Sambo master who scored the dominant victory, showing the Irishman that there were levels within the overall MMA skill set. Beating McGregor down over 4 rounds on his way to a submission victory, Khabib then moved to attack his teammate Dillon Danis, causing one of the ugliest post-fight scenes in the sport's history. It was both a comprehensive victory and a clear example of out-showmanning the showman. Number 3. Luke Rockhold. Arrogance can be a tough trait to outrun in this sport. Though certainly talented as hell, Luke Rockhold's confidence in his own abilities proved to be his downfall when he signed to take on the veteran Michael Bisping for his first 185-pound title defense at UFC 199. The pair had fought before, and to be fair, Rockhold had every reason to expect a win. This, however, did not stop him from patronizing the Brit at every opportunity, belittling his skill set in comparison to his own. Well, in the end, it didn't work out so well for him. Bisping was able to time a perfect reaching hook, knocking his adversary down to the canvas for a first-round finish. A new champ was crowned, and Rockhold's confidence was seemingly shaken to the point that he never managed to recapture the form that led him to the belt. Number 2. Ben Askren. Those who have followed the sport for years were aware of Ben Askren as one of the biggest what-ifs in MMA history. And when the time came for him to finally test himself in the UFC, while it might have come a little late, there was certainly a huge level of buzz surrounding his progress. After edging past the legendary Robbie Lawler in a truly odd but riveting contest, Askren was matched up against the resurgent Jorge Masvidal. As you might have guessed, the pair's personalities clashed from the get-go, and by fight night, these two were just dying for the opportunity to get their hands on each other. Up until that point, Askren had done everything in his power to make light of Jorge's merits as a threat, all while demeaning his persona in front of the cameras. On the night itself, Masvidal's vengeance was swift, as he read Ben's intention to immediately shoot for a takedown, clattering into him with a flying knee. It was the fastest knockout in UFC history, and a moment that will forever be played on mixed martial arts highlight reels. Safe to say, that must have felt exceedingly good for game bread. Number 1. Ronda Rousey. No one, and we mean no one, managed to capture success within the sport only to watch it all collapse, to the same extent as former UFC Women's Bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey. It's hard to explain just how much of a sensation she was at the height of her powers. But like most of the great fighters who come into superstardom, the great fall would soon follow. And boy, was this one for the ages. Facing off against the decorated boxer Holly Holm, Rousey belittled her opponent at every opportunity, convincing us all that this would be yet another run-of-the-mill victory for her highly impressive track record. However, on the night, Rousey was found out in the most embarrassing of circumstances, outclassed completely before being KO'd stiff with the single most iconic head kick in the sport's history. You truly cannot write an uglier end than that. And that'll just about do it for our list. What's your own personal favorite instance of a fighter getting their comeuppance inside the cage? Do be sure to let us know in the comments section below before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all our latest uploads. Thanks for watching.